My one concern is that maybe the skirt is too short. We have a broad constituency of women out there for whom this could be considered exploitative. And I think you know how I feel about cheap sexual tittle...
Welcome to episode 16 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where I think you all know how we feel about cheap sexual
titillation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of that on this show.
Nope, unfortunately.
If it was a video podcast,
a
bit different.
How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
Good. This week's episode is
It's continuing along the theme of season 3, isn't it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's fun. However, it's got an awful lot of problems, an awful lot of plot holes and things that you really do have to suspend your disbelief at.
Yeah, I think it requires a forgiving audience.
Without a doubt. Right at the start of this run, we discussed the genesis, the origins of the Jonathan Creek show, and we discussed how David Rennick wanted to produce a UK Columbo, or his version of Columbo. But I think that this season, certainly, we've got about as far away from Columbo as you can get.
It's not even similar. The guy wears a coat.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I really want a locked room murder mystery, a how or who done it.
Let's hope there's one to come.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, we do sort of have it this week, but it's wrapped up in so much nonsense that it's hard to see.
Indeed.
But as I said, I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun if you want to just kind of switch off for an hour and enjoy something on the telly. This was fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to think about it a bit harder, then there's issues.
Well, we'll discuss the issues throughout the podcast. Do you have a summary for us this week?
As always.
Crack on.
In Ghost's Forge, Jonathan and Maddie meet Mimi Tranter, an enthusiastic fan of Adam's shows with a keen interest in letting Jonathan know she's figured out all the tricks. When Mimi tells the tale of Ghost's Forge and the unsolved murder of Ezra Carr, both Jonathan and Maddie have their interest piqued. A missing apostrophe gets our eponymous hero thinking, but can he solve a case where some of the key players are not who they appear to be?
I wonder if he can, Ian. Thank you. Should have mentioned there earlier, this reminded me very much, we won't give away any spoilers, but this was basically Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Oh, there's a problematic movie.
The same problems that has, this episode has. In fact, even more so, I would suggest.
Absolutely.
But we'll get there.
Yes.
We begin on the street this week, where Adam's Rolls Royce pulls up outside the house of his new lady friend. I think she's called Cindy.
Well, she's back from somewhere. He's obviously glad to see her again, and she gives him a gift.
Yeah, it's Japan she's back from.
Yes, he's got a shirt with some Japanese writing on it from her, sort of kimono style.
Uh-huh.
He seems very happy.
Yeah, they all seem very lovey-dovey. And we cut from there to a florist's.
Yes, Adam's gone in to buy her some flowers, but he's distracted by an attractive employee.
Yes, he begins to read out or dictate the note to be placed on Cindy's card for the flowers. But as he's reading it out, his eyes fall upon the owner of the florists, and it appears that the sentiment could equally apply to her.
Yes, I think her name's Samantha, isn't it?
Yes.
And he clearly is talking to her by the end of his soliloquy.
He is very taken with her.
Absolutely.
And rightly so.
Why not?
From the florist, we go to Maddie's flat this week for the first time, and she is puzzled as to why a reporter named Mimi Tranter has sent a letter asking to meet with Jonathan.
Yeah, well, we know that Maddie is quite keen to meet people who write her letters, so I'm surprised that she's got concerns.
Yeah, the concerns or her attitude becomes obvious throughout the episode.
I think the issue here is that Maddie knows something about Mimi as opposed to her usual correspondence who she's never heard of before. Yeah,
there's obviously a jealousy. She describes her as a bimbo type who women can't stand and men dribble over. Jonathan suggests a bit like a urinal. She agrees but says, without the charm.
Yes, and Jonathan points out that she appears to be one of the two types of people you should never spend time with.
What are they?
Serial killers and women who spell thanks with an X.
Yeah, now this is obviously in times before text messaging and WhatsApp, etc. were quite as...
Yeah, it's a stylistic thing.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks signs off his tweets like that, HANX.
Does he?
Where they talk, an Oompa band strikes up outside.
It does. They're waiting, that's what they're doing. Jonathan mentions that they can't wait forever. And the band starts playing, as you said. It's obviously quite irritating.
I can imagine it would be deeply frustrating. We used to work in an office that had a brass band take up residence outside the window from time to time.
Oh, we did all sorts, didn't we?
They only knew one tune. Mm-hmm. They kept playing it, and playing it, and playing it.
Normally at Christmas time, in fact.
Yeah. But it wasn't a Christmas song.
No. And you also get the bagpipes for the tourists. Oh. Non-stop.
Unbelievable.
Where's a host when you need one?
Absolutely. Maddie yells at them out the window to no avail, really. They're not interested in what she has to say.
Not at all. So the door goes and the very glamorous Mimi enters and immediately goes to the window and successfully gets the band to stop playing. She flashes her
winning smile.
A winning smile, yes, her eyelids and what else.
Yeah, and they take a notice. The attention is captured.
Yeah, this doesn't help Maddie's mood, I don't think, or her attitude.
I think it maybe reinforces her preconceptions at this stage.
I think, and not unjustifiably, Maddie believes that this Mimi uses more than her brains to get what she wants.
Perhaps.
Well, definitely we see her doing it all the time.
At this stage, Mimi turns to Jonathan and takes great pleasure in explaining that she enjoyed the show at the weekend, but she'd obviously figured out all the tricks. They were fairly straightforward.
Yeah, she explains how they were achieved. She's obviously a smart cookie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's not a half-wit in any sense.
No, and she tells Jonathan that she has something that might be up his street. Before Maddie takes the hump at her request for iced tea rather than coffee.
Yes. Well, who wouldn't?
Yeah, it's a very American thing. I'm not sure too many people here would suggest such a thing.
Yeah, maybe at that same Continental as well. I remember they used to have a lot of it in France when I went there in the 90s, but it's not.
This isn't France.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not something we've ever really had here.
Nah. She then reveals more of her personality by firstly pulling out a cigarette. Even back then, where smoking was still quite acceptable, you wouldn't do it in someone's house without asking permission, I wouldn't have thought.
Absolutely not. She also mentions that they need to be quick because her married lover, Robin, is coming for her soon.
Yes, and he has a 6-month-old baby, so we're getting a picture of her outlook in life.
Yes, certainly her concern for others and empathy is perhaps not the strong point of her personality.
In any case, she begins her tale, and through flashback, what do we discover?
She begins her story by retelling how she first met Robin. She was there to present the prize for a national story writing competition. Somewhat oddly went alone to the man's house.
I'm not sure if that's odd. She was there in an official capacity to hand over a prize during the day.
Maybe. Anyway, his wife was there, but she could tell they didn't fit together.
Yeah.
That therefore justifies all her further indiscretion.
It couldn't be that day they were having an argument or something like that.
Yeah, no. Just don't fit. Anyway, they began a relationship from that point.
Yeah. It may also be something to do with the fact that we see, supposedly see a baby in this flashback. It's quite clearly a toy.
It's got a massive head. Yes, and things continue for Robin and Mimi.
Yeah, they instantly fall for each other.
Yeah. And on one of these occasions when they meet up in secret, he falls asleep and mentions something in a dream about Ghost's Forge.
Yeah, he shouts it out in distress.
Yep. I mean, that couldn't possibly just be a dream. It must mean something. So she interrogates him when he wakes, and he's not able to elaborate until it occurs to him that he maybe read about an unsolved murder in a magazine.
Yeah, I think she done some investigating, and it turns out that Ghost Forge was an old house, or is an old house, that was lived in by a hermit type named Ezra Carr, who was discovered 18 months ago by a dog walker. He was dead at his window.
Yes, quite a creepy image there of the wizened old man.
Cat weasel type.
Yeah, slumped over his windowsill.
Now, fortunately, Mimi has the police report on the incident, and through more flashback, we see that Ezra was found with a sword in his neck as he sat in his wheelchair in a room with a painting of his late wife, we presume, and a diary open on the table.
Dramatic.
What else was found?
Blood.
On the stairs, but not that of Ezra.
Although subsequent pathology showed the blood here did not belong to the murder victim.
So? Big deal. Old bloke's found with a knife in his neck. Where's the story?
Where's the motive? He lived alone. He knew no one. No one knew him. There was all kinds of valuable stuff there. Burglar would have had a field day, but nothing was stolen.
Next of kin?
He had none. Stuff's all been gobbled up by the state. House has been bought by some property dealer who's doing it up to sellers' flats. I thought if we could get inside, have a little nose about. Now, I've sweet-talked the estate agent into letting us in next Saturday.
Get inside to look for what?
What's that you always say? Don't know till you found it?
Anyway, why don't I just leave all this stuff here for you to absorb properly before we go... Oh, that'll be my lift.
That's, I think, the first problem I have. Why does she think this must be some sort of mystery? Surely it could just have been a robbery or a burglary.
Could have been, but it's unsolved.
Yeah, but still, I don't know why that's right up Jonathan Street.
Well, it seems spooky to her, and she wonders if he's going to be interested.
Yeah,
I suspect that Maddie might think he's only interested because it's Mimi that's asking.
I think that's correct.
I wonder if he is only interested because Mimi's asking.
I think that's correct.
Yeah. The doorbell we heard there was Robin.
Yeah, who is introduced but suddenly wants to leave when he sees photocopies of some Ghost Forge clippings.
He seems kind of either, I don't know, irked or perturbed.
Spooked.
Certainly he's not happy.
No, he's not. And after they leave, we see Jonathan has been charmed, much to the displeasure of Maddie, and he's going to give her the help she's asked for. And Maddie's mood is not improved by what?
When the band begins to play once more.
It's the soundtrack to this episode, isn't it?
Yeah. Over at theatre.
Yes.
I think it's a read-through, perhaps, of
Some sort of meeting, just...
Yeah, before the show, anyway. And there's a review from the Macclesfield Echo being passed around.
Yes, from a reporter or a journalist called Dougie Dawson.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's written in the newspaper looks like a letter from a reader, but
yeah,
apparently he's a journalist.
I think that how they've presented this was quite nice when you contrast it to what happens. I mean, it's a tiny little one-liner.
Yes.
It's minute. They pass this around. It's the size of a strip of chewing gum.
It could be ignored.
Should be ignored.
Quite happily be ignored.
Yes, and it would have blown over them, and it would have had no impact. But no.
As the meeting comes to an end and everybody else leaves, Jonathan is dismayed to see that the backdrop for the stage for the live show is that review blown up to about 1 million times its original size.
Yeah, Adam he's trying to play it down, doesn't bother him, but then we see this, so it clearly does. However, he is cheered up when his lunch date arrives.
It's Samantha.
The old dog.
Ooh.
Not Samantha, Adam.
No, yes, clearly.
We now cut between two different scenes. We've got Robin's house and a hotel.
Yes, I think that the writer for this episode looked up the book of Ways for a Wife to Find Out About an Affair tropes.
Yes. The wife's called Shirley, and as she picks up one of Robin's shirts, she doesn't like what she smells. We assume it's some sort of perfuming.
Yes. There's no lipstick on the collar at least, but there is a smell of perfume.
Yeah. And we cut to Robin cheating with Mimi and boasting about where he has told Shirley he is meant to be.
Yeah. We move back and forth between these two scenes as Mimi and Robin become ever more amorous, and Robin finds an address in the pocket of one of his shirts or trousers.
Quite a risque scene for Jonathan Creek. I thought we're about to go full hardcore at one point.
Did you? Did you really think that?
Nah. So we see Shirley get into her car and charge off to confront the resident of the address.
Yes, clearly she's found out where Robin is.
However, when she arrives at her destination, it's not what we thought. As we see her give up a perplexed Maddie a face full of spray paint.
Yeah, that's an unusual... I suppose it's red because she's a Scarlet Woman or something.
Yeah.
But yes, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, because obviously Robin would have had the address to pick up Mimi from earlier
Earlier
that
on.
day, which was Maddie's.
Absolutely.
That's a little bit of Silence of the Lambs. You know, the viewer thinks they're going to a different door.
Yes, and they're not. You've just ruined that movie for anyone that's not watched it.
But that's not really the giveaway, is it?
Okay.
He was a ghost.
All along. Shirley's not in the mood to listen to Maddie.
No, she storms off before she can explain.
And as she does, what time was this? I thought it was the middle of the night. But
Yeah.
she storms off, having driven in the dark, and the Oompa band starts playing.
It's the next morning. We're in Mimi's car. She is apologising to Maddie about the mistake. And I think Maddie's still got patches of red paint.
Yeah, and her hairline and so on, yeah. Mimi's figured out this week's tricks from Adam's show, so obviously it's aired with that review in the background. And they're heading to Ghost's Forge.
Yeah, they pull up outside and I think they're 45 minutes late, but again, Mimi uses her charms to appease the, you'd imagine the angry estate agent waiting there.
Meanwhile, Jonathan and Maddie look at the newspaper where Dougie Dawson has responded to Adam's challenge, you might say.
Yes, he has.
His 2-line review has developed into a 2-page effort.
Indeed. And at this point, Adam phones Jonathan. Now, Jonathan advises him to be nice to Dawson, perhaps take him out for dinner. Rather than trying to fight fire with fire, use some charm.
At this stage, Mimi returns with the key.
With a big smile, as if to say, look what I have achieved by wearing a very short skirt.
And as they drive in, Jonathan notes something about the house name.
Yes, he's not specific, but he mentions the spelling of Ghost's Forge.
He does.
Not really spelling, is it? More grammar.
Yeah. It's not spelled wrong, it's just spelled a specific way.
Did you think that Ghost Forge may have been the same building as...
Gallows Gate. I certainly thought it looked very familiar, and if it's not the same one, it was probably built around about the same period.
Yeah. Anyway, inside, as Jonathan and Mimi look at something on the floor, a stubborn Maddie rants about how the decorators are now in and the whole exercise is futile. They'll find nothing. However, they do find something.
The blood's still there that was described in Mimi's earlier story.
Yes, and Jonathan suggests they were caused by someone falling down the stairs. Because these spots are at the bottom of the stairs, they're not up in the murder room.
Perhaps he's thinking back to his time in the House of Monkeys.
Could be, yeah.
He himself fell in the stairs.
But Jonathan still can't get past the name of the place. There has never been a forge here or any talk of ghosts. But he then stops in his tracks as they hear a noise coming from upstairs in the attic.
Well, Maddie suggests they go into the attic room, and when they do, they discover something.
Yeah, they creep up, and what appears?
It's a bat.
Bats and cobwebs, which Maddie gets all over her face.
She's not happy.
Nah.
There's something else up in the attic.
Yeah, what does Jonathan find?
A box full of the same book.
Not full.
Almost full of the same book.
Yeah, 5 copies of a book by a person called Gerald Eastland, and the name of the book is The Grave Digger.
Interesting.
They then find the room where the body was found, and another room which is locked from the inside. So as Jonathan tries to pick it, Maddie grabs Mimi and tells her they'll set off to try and find a ladder. There must be one around here. Oh, big assumption that.
Well, I suppose if the decorators are in and there's work being done, it makes sense that there'd be some kind of ladder.
Yeah, fair enough. Outside we see Maddie climb up, and at first shouts to Jonathan, who is still outside the door in the house.
Yep.
He's pondering the books. A few moments later, who goes up?
Well, Mimi is getting frustrated at hearing nothing and throwing health and safety to the wind. She climbs the ladder without anyone holding it, makes her way into the room, and doesn't see Maddie.
Oh, she's shocked. Where has she been?
Well, she goes to the door and asks if Maddie's out there, but Jonathan says no, she didn't come out.
Yeah, she's disappeared. So let's be clear here. Maddie's climbed up the ladder and Mimi has remained at the bottom of it.
So the ladder's not moved.
Nope.
It's the same
Jonathan
window.
is at the door outside. He's been sitting there the whole time. Yeah. Maddie's not come out. So where could she have went?
Who knows?
It was a nice puzzle. The solution is, again, garbage.
Yes.
But we'll get to that.
Yes. It could have been done differently, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think the practical aspect of requesting that work. Anyway, let's leave it just now.
Jonathan and Mimi at this stage decide they better head outside and... Did they say call the police?
Yeah.
That seems a bit of an overreaction.
Yeah, it did seem so. But as Mimi is sitting in the car with Jonathan, about to call the police,
Yeah, Maddie rocks up. Seems fine.
a big grin on her face. She's obviously enjoying having fooled them.
Definitely.
However, Jonathan immediately works out what's happened with a fuming Mimi left in the dark. Now, here's the thing. Don't you think that if you were in Mimi's position and you knew that Jonathan knew, you would ask simply, or she'd be able to charm him into providing this answer?
You would think so. Maybe she didn't realise that Jonathan knew. Maybe she wanted to try and figure it out for herself.
Yeah, possibly. So where do we head next?
Samantha's home.
Yes, Adam and her are getting closer, but she goes for a shower, and what does he notice?
Dentures in a glass on the windowsill.
And immediately decides to make an escape, and that's a massive assumption.
Well, this is a massive assumption on his part. Mm-hmm. She later makes another massive assumption that this is why he left.
Yeah, there's no way that she would know that's why he's done a bunk.
No, it's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll come to that. But
yeah,
from his point of view, he's seen these dentures and assumes they're hers.
Yes, this is the third time we've had the bald female. Mm-hmm. We've had the tongue female.
Yes.
And now, apparently, if you've got dentures, you have to make an escape as well.
He's not a modern man, is he?
Yeah. In fairness, this is Adam, so we expect this type of behaviour from him.
True. Right, over at, I think, Maddie's flat?
I thought it was a windmill. Doesn't really make any difference.
No. Jonathan is still thinking about Ezra.
He is. He is reading The Grave Digger as a high-spirited Maddie boasts of her recent trick and the delight she is taking in wiping the smile off Mimi's face. But as mentioned earlier, Jonathan has other things on his mind. What's he tracked down?
The short story that was written to win the competition.
Yes, and he says that what is interesting about it is not the story itself, but who wrote it. He mentions the fact that Mimi said that Robin and Shirley didn't fit well together, and Maddie admits that she knows what she meant.
Yeah, obviously she's met Shirley and Robin separately, so she's got an idea of the dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan has another issue. He doesn't buy the talking about Ghost Forge in his sleep being due to having read about it in an article.
Well, that's deeply subjective.
Mm-hmm.
He could just have been dreaming about it.
Yeah,
for no reason.
Yeah. My son the other day shouted, he screamed in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we ran through, and he had a nightmare. Took him a while to settle. The next morning I said, what was all that about you, 3 o'clock in the morning? And he said there was a large fox lying on top of him. He was very heavy and he couldn't get up. A couple of days later we found out in nursery he'd been learning about foxes.
Yeah. And I would think quite often when you're dreaming it's going to be stuff that's on the periphery. It's not the things that you think about. You don't dream about your work.
No.
Or spending time sitting on the sofa watching telly with your family. It's the stuff that's kind of around the edges.
Yeah, definitely.
So I disagree with Jonathan's theory here.
Mm-hmm. However, he then goes on to consider the name of the house.
Have you ever read Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce? Nor has anyone else. It's virtually unreadable. But one of the interesting things about it is the title. People are always putting an apostrophe in when there isn't one. It's meant to be like that, so the words are ambiguous. One Finnegan's funeral wake, or several Finnegans wake up.
So, what does ghosts with no apostrophe give you? There was more than one ghost.
All right, let's forget about that for the moment. What do we know about Gerald Eastland?
Cabinet minister during the late 1980s. Flashy bastard who was not my favourite person in the whole world. But contrary to all expectations, after he'd retired, turned out to be a rather nifty novelist. Died about 4 years ago.
Hardly James Joyce, but he had a similar taste for puns and playing around with words. It's like the title of this one. The Gravedigger has nothing to do with a man who digs graves. It's about this very miserable Australian.
Sorry, Lev. Oh. Grave digger. Very clever.
Now, why do you suppose someone would send 6 copies of this book to Ezra Carr?
Well, where'd you get a 6? There were only 5 in there.
You can see from the size of the packet one's been removed. Come on. Ghost Forge, Gerald Eastland, the most unlikely author you can imagine. It's all here in front of us.
The most unlikely author imaginable.
Nonsense.
I can think of quite a few.
Well, we've got Jeffrey Archer, who this might be a sly reference to, but what, a politician writing a book, that is nowhere near the most unimaginable author.
Yeah, and just because you personally found him uninteresting,
Yeah,
those who politically aligned probably found him quite fascinating.
very much so.
You don't get to be a cabinet minister. I mean, I know that they're not all fully qualified for the role, Boris, but you don't just get to do that by dumb luck.
No, even if it's all political machinations, and I mean that's interesting.
Yeah,
You either get to it by being very, very talented, or being a very shrewd political operator, and generally I think probably a mixture of both in most cases.
I would say so.
So yeah, there's going to be something that's interesting there. But yeah, and also I think just about every cabinet member at the end of the day writes a memoir or something.
Yeah.
Writing is something that they do.
Yeah, so I, again, completely disagree with Jonathan's assessment.
Yeah. He's just making stuff up there.
Yeah, it's just, he's got a theory, he's wanting to justify it.
In any case, Maddie still doesn't get what Jonathan is trying to say and needs it spelled out for her.
Back to the theatre.
Yes.
Hey Dougie is there visiting as Adam acts in a sort of, we heard at the top of the show,
We did.
a decent and chivalrous manner.
Who is this guy, you're thinking? Has he had a bump to the head and doesn't realise who he is? But no, he is putting on this act because Dougie Dawson is the only person in the audience watching the rehearsal.
That's right. And at this point, Samantha shows up to deliver her assumptions that we criticised earlier.
Yes, she has correctly assumed, but miraculously,
Yes,
that
Columbo magic, that's what that is.
it is. That's why he left her bedroom.
He could have left for any reason. He could have had a call from another girlfriend. He could have had a crisis of conscience.
Yeah.
He could have just needed the toilet really badly and not want to do it in her house.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only possibilities.
Clearly. Things get worse, however, as she tells everyone who's listening, including Dougie, how and when she was picked up by Adam.
Yes. And the florist buying flowers for his other girlfriend.
Yes. And then goes on to compare him to a dog turd.
It's a bit harsh.
On the dog turd. And we see that Maddie has arrived just as this is playing out. She's got news for Jonathan. She spoke with Eastland's publishers, and it appears that his hypothesis was correct.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Where next?
We go to Robin's house, I think.
And we have the customary point of view shot as someone approaches Robin from behind as he types at a table.
Yeah. We've talked about folk answering other people's phones in this series and the sort of encroachment into personal areas. This is a major faux pas, surely.
Why?
Because with Shirley and Robin at home, Mimi's let herself into their house and approached Robin and started behaving all kinds of romantically with him.
Taking some chance.
It's bold as brass.
It's stupid is what it is.
Well, I don't think she cares about getting caught. I don't think she's...
Oh, because she's not in trouble. It'll be Robin.
Yeah,
I think she
Shirley's-
probably wants to instigate this, actually. She'd be quite happy for him to get caught.
She's causing a dispute, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Flare up.
Yeah, I mean, she actually says she wants Shirley to be confronted right now, and she gets her chance as Shirley walks in.
Yes, and Mimi explains that Robin loves her.
But first of all, she tells Shirley that Maddie was the person she attacked the other night,
Yes,
not her. She explains that misunderstanding.
And then, yes, she tells her that Robin loves her. Does he not get to speak for himself?
Well, he does in a moment, because things don't go as planned.
Not for Mimi, no.
Instead of agreeing with her, he tells her that she doesn't know what she's doing before saying that he has no life for her to take over, and that, in fact, he killed Ezra Carr. And just then, fortunately, conveniently,
Yes.
who arrives?
Jonathan and Maddie are there with the truth.
Yes. And Maddie suggests that after Shirley has dealt with her screaming daughter, they need to have a talk.
Over at the theatre, Adam's trying to placate Dougie somewhat and explain that Samantha's outburst is not a reflection of who he is. That if you speak to any of his other girlfriends, or any other people who know him, I don't think he's quite as blatant as that. They'll tell him what he's really like.
Yes. Now, what's he wearing as he says this to Dougie?
It's the shirt that we saw in the opening scene being gifted to him in the back of his car.
Yeah, it's a Japanese shirt with some Japanese lettering on it.
As chance would have it, Dougie is a fluent speaker of Japanese.
And he asks him if he knows what the lettering means.
Adam doesn't speak Japanese and he's not aware.
So Dougie translates.
Yeah, he says that he accepts Adam's position that other women will make it clear what they feel about him. He gets agreement that this was gifted by a girlfriend and says it's no wonder. It says, I am full of shit.
And he gets up and leaves. I like that.
Yes.
But back to more serious matters at Robin's house. We have the now weekly roundup as Jonathan takes centre stage by first explaining that Ezra was in fact the author of the books, not Eastland. He was just a marketing name. So they used this politician to publicise the work.
It's interesting that they would choose a dull, uninteresting, unlikely politician if they could just pay anyone to put their name on the book.
Yeah. Well, who would you get? I suppose you have to get someone who, unlike what Jonathan thinks, is a believable author, right? So you're not going to get necessarily a rock star, a movie star. That's not...
I suppose you want a balance between someone who would be popular and someone who wouldn't want input.
Yeah, but I think if you're riding on the coattails off something like Jeffrey Archer,
Yeah,
you might think that that's the way to go.
maybe.
Anyway, Jonathan has worked out the Ghost Forge grammar situation. What is it?
It's Ghosts for GE.
That is tenuous. I think that is nonsense.
Do you know
Garbage.
what? This occurs to me that this whole episode started when David Renwick thought of, Ghosts for GE, that could be the name of a house.
Yeah.
And then it's built out from there.
I think so. I wouldn't dispute that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to be clear, Ghost Forge, Ghosts for GE had a double meaning. Or,
Well, it only had one meaning.
there's only one meaning, yes. That he ghost wrote for Gerald Eastland.
So he named his house after one job that he had.
Yeah. Well, we talk about No, we won't talk about the house just now. We'll leave
Okay.
that. Okay. That's a big, big issue.
Yeah.
However, we still don't know what the motive for the murder was.
But Eastland's been dead for what? 5 years? 4.5. You're not suggesting that he had anything to do with the murder?
The pivot to this whole affair was in the motive. It was generally accepted by the police no robbery had taken place. Too much valuable stuff had been left behind. But the police were wrong. What was removed from Ezra Carr's house that night was more priceless than any money or jewellery. It was Ezra Carr himself. Interesting how a name always conjures up an image of someone, even if it doesn't square with the truth. How Ezra Carr just has to be some grizzled Dickensian old fogey, when it could just as easily be a charming young man in his late 30s. A man who tragically lost his wife when they were both young. Who hardly met another living soul for nearly 20 years. Should we be surprised they got it wrong? The man they found dead in that room wasn't actually Ezra Carr at all.
Not as... But... Then who was he?
Your father? Stepfather? Sorry, Shirley. I think you're going to have to fill in the gaps from here on.
Okay. Shirley breaks down at this point and tells her story about how she was raped by her uncle as a 15-year-old girl and has been emotionally scarred as a result. However, it's not that straightforward.
Oh, she quite liked it.
That's what she says.
I suspect a man wrote this episode.
Yeah, so she was, sort of raped at first.
And she started to enjoy it, so...
Yeah, and says this old cat weasel looking guy, I'm really into him. Yeah. She thought it was true love until after a few years she saw him not as an older man, but just as an old man.
So many things wrong with this.
Yeah,
And yes, they became a sort of crime-doing duo. They went out and robbed people and stuff like that.
Yeah, but Bonnie and Clyde.
Aye.
Donnie and Snide. But yeah, the relationship developed. He was no longer a lover, but an abusive jailer. And she saw the evil in him. So he was overpowering. And yeah, he was a rapist. Child rapist. Yeah.
Sex offender.
The whole lot. It's the...
Anyway, they were going to rob Ghost's Forge.
Mm-hmm.
She did her usual bit where she chapped the door. So
It's in the rain, yeah.
yeah, he's obviously not that much of a hermit that doesn't answer his door,
Precisely.
but yet talked to her like he hadn't spoken to him for 20 years.
Invites her in. While they're chatting, he explains about his wife's death, and I think she sort of falls for him, feels sorry for him, certainly likes him. And as they're doing this by the fire, the old uncle, Catweasel, nips up and starts to rob the place.
Yes, but he makes a bit too much noise.
He does. So Robin heads up.
Well, Ezra
Heads up, yes, to find out what's going on.
Yes, there's a scuffle between the uncle, whose name I don't remember.
Can't remember. But he is overpowered by Ezra, who frog marches him back down the stairs. However, on the way down, Ezra just partially escapes and throws Ezra down the stairs. He tumbles and knocks himself out, and that's what caused the blood.
Do you think it was deliberate that they made the creepy uncle look like Jimmy Savile?
A bit of foreshadowing. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, he's knocked out unconscious at the bottom of the stairs, so Shirley goes up to confront the uncle.
Yeah, his uncle runs back up to continue his robbing.
Yes.
And at this point, I think Shirley claims that everything became clearer. She saw the opportunity to rid herself of this abusive man, and it's her that picks up the sword.
No, it's the knife that the uncle brought with him.
Yeah, so it was.
He pulls it out when Ezra confronts him.
Yep, and she planks it into his neck.
Yeah, back of his neck, and he dies there and then. At this point, Ezra comes up the stairs, having woken with amnesia. He believes that he's killed this guy in the earlier scuffle.
She does not dissuade him of this notion.
No, not only does she not dissuade him of this notion, she builds upon this and creates a larger fiction.
Yeah. Tell me this, where did the wheelchair come from?
I think it was just in the room. I think the wife would have been using it before she died.
Okay.
It's the room that's a shrine to the wife.
Right, yeah.
Sort of like Miss Havisham type thing.
Yeah.
So I think that was there. It was probably just left that he never touched that room after the wife died.
Okay. So yeah, as you say, she builds upon this misconception.
Yes.
Says that they're married, a la Overboard.
Yeah, they're trying for children.
And she'll look after him. So she immediately just transports him from the house.
He just accepts this. Oh yes, we do crime together. Yes.
Yeah. Now before we go any further, can we talk about this house and the ages of the people involved?
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The wife certainly died when she was about, I think the age 18 was mentioned. So either one of them was around about that age. How and why are a couple of teens living in this mansion, this huge house? That would be the talk of the neighbourhood. Even, let's say, they've inherited it. The neighbours, everyone else would still be talking about the two teenagers who live in this huge house. They'd be local celebrities.
Yes.
Certainly
or at least known.
People would gossip and talk about them. And at that time, there was no hermetism.
No.
So they'd went out and done their shopping, spoke to neighbours or postmen or whoever.
And yet 20 years later, it's all forgotten.
20 years later, yeah, it's forgotten, and people now accept this old guy lived in this house. No chance.
Time's not been kind to him, has it?
Yeah.
No, it's a farce.
And I don't even inheritance, I don't think that's how it works with these families with all this wealth. It would get into, if their parents both died at an early age and they were left, or his parents died, it would get into some sort of trust, and they would have a flat somewhere, and he wouldn't just be given this house where he would live on his own.
Want the responsibility of a house like that at that age?
Exactly. A couple of 18-year-olds don't want a huge mansion.
Yeah.
They want to be somewhere in London partying or doing whatever, but they're not living like, no chance.
It's not entirely dissimilar to Gallows Gate with the young man having that entire house to himself.
Okay, yes, but two things. One, he was now the same age as what Robin is now, so he was in his late 30s. Okay. But also we're told about that. You know, his circle of friends and the army buddies. It's not a secret. We knew that it came from that part of aristocracy or wealth. So that was a reason for that there.
Yeah.
And also he spoke in a very upper class. He had a way about him. This guy Ezra and Robin. He's a normal 80... Where's this... 18-year-old's living in a huge house like that. And no... massive story.
Yeah. Shirley gets the end of her tale anyway, and Robin/Ezra's not best pleased.
Yeah, she tries to rationalise it by claiming that she was helping him leave this mausoleum that he'd built around himself.
He was quite happy he had a job.
Yeah.
He put quirky signs up at his gatepost.
Mm-hmm. But as you said, someone tapped the door in the middle of the night and he answered, invited them in.
Yeah.
This guy's not... He's not a hermit.
No.
He's just living a quiet life.
She's just made up the hermit part.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But it's the plot hole then, because when they find this old guy...
Why is it assumed it's him? Yeah.
And it's in the papers and there's a story about it. Old Ezra's dead. He's been murdered. Everyone locally is talking about this. And people must say, no, that's not Ezra. You know that. That's the guy who moved in there and his wife died.
He's much younger.
Yeah, they were teens, remember? He lived in the huge house. That's who lives there.
Yeah.
That's not Ezra.
No.
This is before online shopping, so...
Must go to the shops.
How does he eat? How does he tend the house? Either the gardens, he does it himself, or does he get someone in, the postman?
Does he go to see his doctor, his dentist?
All that sort of stuff. For the last 20 years, no one knows. So that this article goes in the paper, and no one says, no, that's garbage, that's not Ezra.
Yeah.
Shambolic. Ghost Forge, David Rennick. Ghost Forge, I've got an idea for a story. Yeah. What about the rest of it? It doesn't matter. Ghost for GE, brilliant.
Let's go from there. What if they were really young?
Anyway, we see her rebuilding his memory. What about pictures and clothes?
Well, she's not rebuilding at all. She's constructing a fictional memory.
Of course. But in his position, you would be saying, well, can I see pictures of, our wedding? And
why don't I have any stuff?
Yeah.
In your house?
Yeah. None of the clothes fit now?
Yeah. That's all the uncle's clothes.
Yeah.
It's also one of these weird things where he remembers certain things and not other things.
Uh-huh.
Like he can walk and talk and interact and...
Well, I think that is a accepted fact that if you do lose your memory, even everything, there's still things that are... you don't have to learn how to walk and talk again.
Okay.
But she's telling him that they were childhood sweethearts who were always on the wrong side of the law. Again, another sort of Bonnie and Clyde type situation. He seems to buy this. They have a child together as well.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about overboard. So she's effectively, this is rape.
Yeah, there's serious issues of consent here.
Yes.
He's not capable of consent. Not only that is he not capable of consent, and she's taking advantage of that. She's not taken him to see medical professionals when he's suffered a serious injury that's caused a massive memory loss.
Yeah.
He's got brain damage.
Of course he's got brain damage, yes. He needs...
Treatment.
He does.
It's like a cartoon. You can't just thump him in the head again and he gets his memories back.
Yeah. She must have been panicking about that the whole time.
What if an anvil falls on him? Oh my goodness.
Oh.
You see them crossing the road every time there's someone dropping a piano down from the first floor window.
No, but she always carries a hammer in case it does get a bang in the head. She can immediately
reapply.
Oh God! I mean, she even admits that there was no way she could get away with such nonsense.
I mean, it was insanity to even believe I could get away with it. Sooner or later, you were going to remember, see me for what I was. 18 months. I just lived from day to day, clinging to every moment while it lasted. The one thing I never expected, just couldn't handle, was that you would find someone else.
You programmed me. Like some kind of doll. You made me think I'd...
And that's why you were haunted by it in your sleep. And when you started writing again as a hobby, it was a giveaway. Even a short story for a magazine. The prose style had an uncanny echo of someone else, suggesting that Robin Priest and Ezra Carr might just possibly be the same person.
And still, I can't see it. Why can't I see it?
Maybe it's better you don't. 20 years of grief is enough for anyone.
So, I'm going to have to leave that one with you, I'm afraid, folks. Oh, yes, Mimi. I nearly forgot. You must be going absolutely mental by now. Wondering how I disappeared from that room yesterday?
Oh, yes, actually.
Oh, good. Bye, then.
Did he say, you've programmed me like a doll?
Where'd you get these programmable dolls?
Of all the analogies to use, you could get us to, you've programmed me like a robot or a computer or even a dog. Right? You program me like a doll. What are you talking about?
Makes no sense.
Cabbage Patch Kid. Oh, dearie me. Anyway.
Shenanigans to one side.
Yeah, back at Maddie's house.
She's got a hose.
Yeah, Jonathan wonders what she needs it for. She tells him not to mind, before asking him what gave her trick away to him. How did he work it out?
Well, he says the biggest clue was her knowing that there was an attic room.
Despite apparently never having been in the house before.
Yeah, so he got the impression she'd been there previously.
And then we find out how she had pulled off this illusion.
It's ridiculous.
Explain.
So she's been into this room with 2 doors. There's a closet / wardrobe and the exit.
Mm-hmm.
And the builders are there doing their work, and she's talked to them and persuaded them just how awful Mimi is, and on that basis they've agreed to brick up the exit or plaster up the exit and make it look like there's only one door.
Mm.
And then obviously disappear out the window.
Yeah. Can you imagine going to the builders who are there on a job, a contract? Oh, hey, there's this woman she's very nasty. Can you help me? No! I'm not doing that at all.
Block off an entire room.
Yeah, why did you... And it's not just that. You need 2 different types. You've got builders and you've got... Because Jonathan was, when they get into the room, inspected it.
Yeah.
You need to brick it off. You can't just paper over it.
And it's plastered up, yeah.
So you need a builder. And even then, with a bit of plaster, you'd be able to... Jonathan would be tapping on the walls and you'd find...
Yeah, you would have heard when he tapped the door, it would have sounded different.
Yeah, you would need to brick it up. Mm. In any case, you need a decorator and some sort of builder to pull that one off.
It's a huge amount of work for one stupid little
joke. Yeah, there's no way. Maddie said, now, perhaps if Mimi had requested it, they'd have been more forthcoming. I'm sorry, no offence, but Maddie says no, go away, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'll lose my job.
Yeah. Anyway, she asked Jonathan for a score out of 10 for this illusion.
He grudgingly gives her a 6.
Yeah, and she's about to complain that it should have been more when we hear what?
The Oompa Band in the street this time.
Yeah, and we find out why Maddie has a hose.
Yes, she opens her window and sprays them and tells them about being antisocial.
Yeah. But unfortunately and brilliantly, it's not the Oompa Band.
No, it's a funeral procession.
Yeah, some sort of Caribbean funeral, I think.
Looks that way.
Yeah. Who are drowned by this water.
It makes you think she should have looked out the window before spraying, because she could have hit anybody.
Yeah.
Or just missed completely.
Yeah. I did enjoy it, however.
It was fun.
I thought the band throughout the entire episode, and I thought Maddie was very funny, and she was good foil this week.
Much better Maddie this week, yes.
Definitely. So there we have it. It's a fun episode, but like I say, full of nonsense.
Yes. Let's just gloss over it and move on.
Okay, before you dazzle us with your trivia, I can tell you the 18th of December 1999 was the original air date, and it was 50 minutes in length. We've got a new director this week.
Ooh.
Richard Holthouse, born in 1951, the first of 3 Jonathan Creeks. He has also directed numerous episodes of Midsummer Murders, Casualty, The Bill, Taggart, EastEnders, Coronation Street, and Emmerdale.
Well known in the business.
Certainly in the soap world.
Yeah.
Guest stars. Mimi was played by a famous face, Lizette Anthony. She was born in 1963, known for her Krull. Look Who's Talking Now, Husbands and Wives, Hollyoaks, Doctors, The Bill, Cluedo, and 3 Up, 2 Down.
Cluedo's what I remember her from.
She was more of I'm not saying she had no career, she was more a personality, a celebrity.
Okay.
David Bailey, the photographer, called her the face of the 80s when she was just 16. She's the daughter of Michael Anthony and Bernadette Milnes. She also appeared as a female lead in 3 Bryan Adams videos: Heaven, The Summer of '69, and Run to You, 3 very well-known songs.
Very popular. Mm-hmm. Timeless classics.
And on a more unsavoury note, she was one of the people recently to come forward with accusations against Harvey Weinstein. Mark Aiken played Robin. He has starred in 24, Hobie City, some of the CSIs, Alias, No Angels, Mersey Beat, The Hello Girls, Casualty, and a favourite of mine from the 90s, Game On.
Yes, I like Game On. He's also got another Jonathan Creek connection because he succeeded the original Adam Clouse, Tony Head, as the face of Gold Blend.
Yes. Now you mention it, that does ring a bell, yeah? Very good. Shirley was played by Sarah Stevens, born in 1971. She has been in Hope and Glory, Doctors, Casualty, Holby City, EastEnders, The Bill, Silent Witness, and Hale and Pace.
If you'd said Doctor Who, that was going to be the full set.
You recognised Dougie Dawson, didn't you?
Of course.
Jim Bowen, born in 1937. He's a 70s comedian, in inverted commas, but primarily known as a TV presenter for Bullseye, the darts game show. He's also acted in Last of the Summer Wine and Phoenix Nights.
Okay.
Samantha was played by Gina Bellman, born in 1966, known for Coupling, Leverage, Jekyll, Black Eyes, and Emerald City.
So that's 2 out of the 3 from Coupling. I wonder if we'll see the third one.
Who's that?
Sarah Alexander.
Oh, I wonder. And just quickly, Cindy, from the beginning of the episode, was played by Kezzy Silverstone,
Okay.
half-sister of Alicia.
Oh, there you go.
Anything for us this week?
Okay, the original script had a scene where Adam invited a second journalist to come and write a glowing review, only to find him slumped over his laptop dead. Adam finished the review and it was published, and it was obviously particularly good.
Yeah.
Issues with pregnancy in this episode. Caroline Quentin was heavily pregnant through love. There's not very many side-on shots. She had to use a platform to get in the window, not a ladder. They used a body double from behind to do the ladder climbing. And there's one shot, I think, where she gets sprayed with the spray paint. When you see her getting sprayed in the face, she's heavily pregnant. But then when you see her back inside the door, she's had the baby already because it was a reshoot or a later.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
See if you can spot that if you watch that one back. I think that is all my notes for this week.
Okay, thank you. Episode review.
Okay.
Motive.
Opportunity, I guess. I don't even know. Whose motive for what?
The motive, the murder.
The murder motive, well, to free herself from her evil uncle.
Emancipation and revenge.
Yeah.
Clues.
Blood in the stairs.
Get blood in the stairs, the apostrophe, the publisher revealing who wrote the books.
Yeah.
Anything else? I suppose Jonathan not buying the dreams, but
It's not a clue.
no, it's not. And the gotcha.
Just the confession, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know.
We've seen this a few times where Jonathan works it out, but he doesn't prove anything, and they say, yeah, it's very Murder, She Wrote. Anyway, next time, Miracle in Crooked Lane.
Okay.
Intriguing?
Absolutely.
Good.
Guess we'll see folk in a couple of weeks then.
We will do.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.